everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome once again to the Pure Digital Podcast with Moses Kemibaro. And today I'm very, very excited to have with me here today Liko Agosta, somebody I've known, I think, for the better part of the last decade and a half. He's the founder of the company called PesaPal, one of Kenya's earliest fintechs doing innovative things in the marketplace. Karibu sana, Liko.
Thank you very much.
So Liko,
glad to be here.
Great. So, Liko, I know this interview has been two years in the making. We've been talking a lot. We've been seeing all the innovative things that PesaPal has been doing. Also, I think when you look at the sort of the heated activity within the fintech space in East Africa and across the continent, you're obviously one of the earlier pioneers and somebody who's done a lot of work in this space, and your company is renowned for really sort of accelerating the pace of payments through digital platforms. But I think for me, what I'd like to maybe first of all delve into is talk a little about Liko. Who is Liko? Where are you coming from? How did all this happen? And maybe we can go back to, like many of us who were digital nowadays, the early formative years, getting into computers, getting into banking, I think in the US where you worked. Tell us a little bit about how this journey started.
So, I was lucky enough to, when I finished high school, my mom was kind enough to let me go to your normal computer classes. So I took, I did the IDPM. I think it was called IDPM at Strathmore College then.
Was this the days of MS-DOS and things like this?
Yeah, these are the days of MS-DOS, Novell NetWare.
Yeah, I remember.
I think it was called Turbo Pascal. So yeah, first computer interaction was at Strathmore College.
Nice.
Right after high school, that's 95, 96. Good times. That's how I got in. Went to college in Kenya and then moved to the States. Failed my exams actually in Moi University horribly.
No way.
Got discoed and then went to the States.
Whereabouts in the US?
I was in Kansas City. First of all, I started in Knoxville, Tennessee for 1 year, and then moved to Kansas City. Left Kansas City in 2004. By the time I left Kansas City, I was worked for a law firm and for Sprint at Telco.
I remember Sprint, yeah.
Then I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, where I worked in banking for around 5 years. Came back home in 2007, and with my business partner, Onesmus, call him my boss, started software outsourcing company, Verviant Consulting Services.
Yeah, I remember when you launched Verviant, it was probably the first time we met each other.
Yes.
And I think at that point, if I remember correctly, the core of your business was actually sort of exporting services. You were not doing so much in Kenya. It was more like international companies, right?
Yes. So the thinking around that business was there's a lot of talent here, which is true. Like we continue seeing a great amount of talent, software development, everything in Kenya. And the thinking at that time was there's all these companies or all these businesses abroad who would pay for services out of Kenya. And we did pretty well. It's just that when post-election violence comes in, I think it was right after, I think the 2007 election, when post-election violence comes in, the customers panic because of business continuity. So we had to shift focus to local business.
Okay.
Then when we shifted focus to local, no, actually, I don't remember the order nicely, but it was post-election violence, then there was a global financial crisis.
Yes, the global meltdown. Yes.
Yeah. So post-election violence, we kind of recovered. Then global financial crisis comes in, and then now everyone is just cutting cost. And at that point, CFOs are just deciding cut. Do minimum, basically go through the storm, and then you'll do whatever you're doing. So we sat down and we thought, okay, fine. What is it we can do? How do we make sure we survive? And the whole idea was try and build products or try and build things that you can sell or that will work even if the office is closed, so that you can always be earning money. So we started building a travel network. Actually, we were not building PesaPal as a platform. We were building a travel network. And the thinking around the travel network was somewhere where someone who wants to come to East Africa would search for their travel options. East Africa continues to be a leading destination for tourism or for tourists in the world, basically safari, beach, bush, and all that stuff, the African experience. So we build the platform. We get close to the end. Then we're like, cool, find a payment gateway. We set up an account on PayPal. First payments come in, the account was shut down.
No way.
We set up an account on Google. Google had a Google Pay or Google.
Was it Google Checkout or something?
Google, there was a Google product
I remember,
for payments.
Yes.
A PayPal competitor or PayPal clone. We also set up the business there. We were shut down. We actually went and created the business in the US. I remember I incorporated in Delaware, set up an account on authorize.net. The first transactions come in, you're shut down because you're saying, look, I'm processing transactions through you and the money is going to be moved to Africa to pay for travel. So at that time, you're sitting down, you're thinking, these guys are very unfair. But then when now we run a payment business, you understand why those decisions, or you have more clarity into why those decisions are being made. So we decided to build a payment gateway.
So basically, you're scratching your own itch. That's what happened.
Yes. So we were like, build a payment gateway, and we built the platform, built version 1, announced it in September 2009, and got like 3 transactions, tattoo.
Immediately. So this is early days.
Between September 2009 and August 2010, we got 3 transactions.
Are you kidding me?
Like not 3 transactions a day, not 3 transactions
in total
a week, 3 transactions in total.
So you pivot to this idea, you set it all up.
You pivot the idea. So you've built the platform, build it and they'll come.
Yes.
There are many things we did not know. Like when you sit down and you look at the PesaPal, then you laugh at yourself, how stupid you could have been.
There was a lot of naivety at the time.
Then Access Kenya calls us and they're doing concours. They say they want to sell. At that time they had home, I think home.net or
.co.k, I remember that.
They were really pushing for people going online. They decide they want to sell tickets online. So we went to the meeting. To be honest, we did not have a ticketing platform. But they said they want to sell tickets on. I'm like, we have a platform. It was on a Monday evening. And on my way back to the office, I called my colleague. He's very successful right now. He runs a software company. It's called Paul Mungai. And I was like, by the way, on Friday, we're going to demo an online ticketing platform. So we built tickets.pesapal.com. Our first client was Access Kenya. We sold 156 tickets. So you're moving from 3 transactions a year to 156 tickets going into a weekend. That was pretty successful. So we thought, cool, the future is ticketing. So tickets.pesapal.com became what is TicketSasa.com right now.
At this point, are you acquiring both cards and M-Pesa?
We started with M-Pesa on a SIM card that was registered to Paul Mungai. So when you paid PesaPal, when you go to the iframe, it told you, send money to this phone number. And we had a SIM server at Adtel. And we had put the SIM card in there. So when the payment comes in, we read the payment information on the SIM card, then we complete the transaction. So if you paid PesaPal at that point, the first SMS said Paul Mungai. And then a confirmation SMS came from PesaPal saying you've paid Access Kenya or whoever it is at that time.
So this is very much previous, prior to Lipa na M-Pesa and all these things.
Yes, Lipa na M-Pesa was not a thing then, because I remember the first time we heard about M-Pesa merchant payments. So our thinking was build the merchant payment side of M-Pesa. And then Kopo came and did a very good job at putting some traction on that pay merchant or pay bill, whatever. So we had the M-Pesa integration. We had Visa, MasterCard through I&M Bank at that time. And a lot of lessons that came with that. That's when you learn about card fraud. That's when you learn about customer service. That's when you realize, okay, we built a system, but we didn't think about how will accounts log in, how will finance log in, how will all these things work and all that stuff. So immediately after concours, now we start building the real PesaPal, because version 1 was just
A proof of concept.
Proof of concept, but you didn't know you had a proof of concept. So based on what's happened in the market, based on what you've seen, you start building now what is the basis of what PesaPal is right now. So late 2010, you're building, you're trying to make sure everything is okay. 2011, we got our first real merchant, Rupu.
I remember Rupu.
Yeah, 2 months later, we got Zuku. When Zuku was starting, I remember that at that time, the CEO was Richard Bell. He was kind enough to say, okay, fine, I'm going to give you business. Because we went to him looking for money, looking for an investor, East African Capital Partners. And he was like, cool, you're too small for me, but here's business. And Zuku opened doors for us because we started with Zuku. It helped us build out a whole team, build out the processes, build out settlement, risk management, and everything. And then when they opened Uganda, we opened PesaPal Uganda. When they
Also, you
opened
rode with them
Tanzania, we opened PesaPal Tanzania. That was our anchor tenant.
Fantastic.
Yes. So they made it very, very easy for us to go into a country, set up the country, make your first hires, build your processes, build your settlement and everything.
And now you used to start getting this Pan-African dimension, right? How do things work in Uganda? How do things work in TZ? You start to understand those environments and figure out how to go beyond Kenya and become a regional business, right?
So we went into Uganda and Tanzania with one anchor tenant. And we will always be appreciative for that chance because it allows you to build. Our experience thinking about other markets has just been stressful. Why? Because right now you have to navigate regulation. You have to navigate getting the right people. There's a lot more to be done if you don't have an anchor merchant. But the big blessing about our business right now is we've always had a good team and we've always been lucky enough to have hired the right people or very, very good people. So we do many two experiments. So one of our experiments has worked out very well, the post business. That one is an easier business to put in another country and to scale.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the post business. I think your product is called Sabi. How did that come about? How did it happen? Because I think one of the catalysts for this particular conversation today is that I think in the course of a week, I've encountered PesaPal, I think in 3 different merchants. And I keep sending you pictures and screenshots of this stuff. And I'm like, it almost feels like you're everywhere in the post space. But maybe tell us how that actually came to be.
We're supposed to be everywhere. Our thinking or our general strategy is be that service provider who every business uses by, with a different product. Businesses have unique needs. And we think that a lot of organizations that interact with businesses look at them immediately as a place to extract money. We're trying to define a new relationship with businesses where you say, look, how can I come and make it just a little bit easier? Whether it's to do your collections, to do your reporting, to do your reconciliation, and all that stuff. Now, when we were looking for a name for our post product, we ended up with Sabi. It's pidgin for know or understand. So we think that we're trying to build a platform whereby we can help the owner of a business get a general view, a general understanding about what's going on. So, collecting money, sending out money, just managing their money. And to do that, we've had to do a little bit or a lot more than what other platforms offer in the market. We've had to build post infrastructure that into which you can integrate anything. So there are APIs, there's interfaces whereby if you have a point of sale application, if you have an ERP application, if you're a hotel and you run a property management system, if you're a restaurant and you have a restaurant management system, we're deliberately going out to these providers or the larger providers and saying, let's do the work to integrate so that if you come and you pick, or when you come and you pick Sabi or PesaPal infrastructure, you'll always know things are flowing all the way to the end. Every payment can be accounted for. You can know that this payment is for a customer in room number 82. Or you can know that this particular cashier is not keying in information correctly. So that's what we're working.
Transparency and being able to see all the points, so to speak.
So we believe that payments is a very small part of a transaction or But then we need to put the payment and what someone was paying for so that the owner of the business can have a clear view. Because if I just give you a report of your payments, you'll not be able to know where is this coming from. And then we find a market whereby, like if you look at hotels and restaurants, for example, we've done very well there. We find a market whereby people invested in infrastructure, but then they were not maximizing from the infrastructure. So we're spending time on building specialized teams that can basically align with the businesses, ask where are your problems, and we see what can we fix or what can we facilitate. Yeah.
So it sounds to me there's a bigger philosophy here, right? It's not just about the payments. It's really looking at how a business can actually run better.
Yes. So from running our own business, we've seen what happens when you do automation. We've seen what happens when you do things better. We've seen what happens when you have a better budgeting process, a better management process, your management accounts and all that stuff. So you're like, how do you support other businesses? Now, fraud is a big problem. Whether you run a petrol station, you run a hotel, you run a restaurant, you run a wines and spirits, there's always fraud. If you can help the businesses reduce fraud, by saying, look, I'm doing things end to end, then you're helping the viability of the business. Then you're helping the owner of the business, because typically owners of businesses deploy capital, but then there's leakages. So you're dying, but you don't know why you're dying.
Do you find that there's a big challenge? Because I imagine in many businesses, some of these things have been status quo. People have become accustomed to things being bad. Do you find that it is a challenge to get them to adopt your products and your approach to get the full benefit of them? Or is it something where you need to spend a lot of time educating them on the key benefits and why they should do it?
It takes time. And we're also working very hard to continue being better. It used to be that you got a POS terminal from a financial institution and you never saw them until they were bringing more printer rolls, or you had a problem, or more rolls for printing, or you had a problem. We've defined a different relationship where we keep on checking in and saying, how are you? Where are things? How can we help? And obviously we can't sort every problem, but then there are things when you hear the same problem with 20 customers, then because all our software is built in East Africa, it's easy for us to say, okay, fine. Fred, please work on this. Or it's easy for us to say, hey, Michael, please work on this. Or look at this as a problem and say, it's going to affect, let's say, 500 merchants. So go ahead and fix it.
How big is the POS business, if you're able to share any insights? Because, again, one of the catalysts of this meeting for me feels like these POS systems are everywhere. And I'm seeing them I think when I was in Mombasa at White Sands a couple of months ago, it's there. I was at a restaurant the other day. I think I shared that with you. But it feels to me that I'm seeing them pop up everywhere. And I guess it's about this new approach that you're bringing to the market, right?
So the approach is try to align with the business, number one. Number two, the businesses typically, like if you look at Kenya, the business wants to manage their card payments. They want to manage their M-Pesa. Our POS terminals support card and mobile money. So you're giving one central interface whereby even if you pay by M-Pesa, there's receipting. So there'll be a report that has everything. So your typical gaps, your typical reconciliation nightmare, the typical places where you'd be twangwed if you own a business start narrowing.
Because now you have one single source of truth. It's all there.
So you're trying to become the single source of truth. One of the things we're trying to think about is how do we also put cash as part of that equation, so that at the end of the day, you'll say, how much am I getting from PesaPal, which is Visa, MasterCard, and then how much cash at hand is the person at the shop supposed to have? So it's one point of truth. Because our infrastructure is built in East Africa, we're going to get to a point whereby if you own a business and you're not near the shop, you can pull up your merchant account and these are my collections for today.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that unified platform approach, because I think the other aspect I really wanted to hear more about is the e-commerce infrastructure, right? How people like the hotels, we as an agency, for instance, in my company, use PesaPal to help our clients acquire payments on their websites for e-commerce sales. How's that doing? Because I think that was the kind of like the original entry point. How's that doing? What's happening in that area? Maybe you can share a little bit more about how PesaPal is playing in that space.
So e-commerce, to us, a lot of e-commerce has been travel commerce. Like your typical tour operator, your hotels, bill payments actually, and bill payments. And that's a good business. That's a business that has really powered us and supported us or helped us pay the bills over the year and make their reinvestment. Now, early COVID, travel disappeared. So e-commerce disappeared. A lot of what we were reading in the world is e-commerce is exploding because Amazon exploded, Shopify exploded, Stripe and all those guys, and even the tech stocks went up. But we struggled to find e-commerce in East Africa. Why? Because we did a lot of work around enabling our customers to do e-commerce. We had there's one segment where we had success. It was food delivery, like building, supporting Art Caffe with their online delivery platforms, Mama Rocks with their online delivery platforms. That did well. But when we looked at traditional retail and such things, it did not really take off. Or shopping, household shopping, it did not take off. So we think there's travel commerce, there's ordering quick food. We believe that a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants and all that stuff are going to continue building their own infrastructure because they want to lower their cost of online sales,
as opposed to using the food delivery services who take a massive commission, right?
Yes. And then we believe that there's going to be local commerce. We want to be part of it as an enabler, but we believe there's going to be a time when, if Moses wants to buy an iPhone and he gets it online cheaper than at the shop, he'll buy it online. Right now, if you're trying to buy online and on our online sites, they're more expensive than just going to Diamond Plaza. Yes.
So convenience.
So there has to be convenience and there has to be a price element. I started using Amazon when I was in the States because books were 30% cheaper than on Borders. So you'd wait the 3 days. You'd actually go to Borders, look at the books and everything, and then you'd buy and wait for 3 days because you've saved 30%. So Amazon was cheaper. We believe that we're going to get to a point whereby someone can actually model it and say, look, I'm going to give a better price on e-commerce because I'm warehousing and marketing and all that stuff. And I believe that there needs to be natural distribution channels. You kind of can't stand alone. Yes. So like if you look at e-commerce in our markets, Jumia has never made a profit. So they've been standing alone. I think I had a lot of hope for Safaricom and Masoko because you're standing on an existing business, but I don't think that worked out. But I think there's an opportunity to be able to say, here is e-commerce. The product is cheaper. And and by the way, Moses, I know your credit rating is X, so you can pay me over 5 months.
So basically, it's a work in progress. We're not quite there yet in that sense.
Yes, because the products on most e-commerce sites in our markets are more expensive. And there's really no advantage because why would you buy an iPhone online at the same price you can buy at Diamond Plaza? And Diamond Plaza, you just jump into your car and you go.
Yeah, the value proposition is not strong enough.
It's not strong enough. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about regulation, right? Payments, money and payments is very sensitive. One of the things I've always noticed on your social media is whenever you get certified or accredited by, in Tanzania and Uganda and Kenya, which I believe are all solid now for you. Tell us a little bit more about that journey towards being a regulated payment service provider.
So around 4 years ago, as the business was growing, so the e-commerce business is not usually in your face. With the e-commerce business, usually someone finds you when they load a page. Like you're on an airline website, then you click pay, all of a sudden PesaPal comes up.
Yes.
The post business is in the neighborhood. And remember, we had a mobile point of sale product, like a small dongle that used to have a Bluetooth connection.
Yes.
So when we started doing that business, we realized that, okay, fine. One, you've been collecting money. Two, when we started, like in 2009 in Kenya, there was no regulation around around collection or payment services and all that stuff. Okay. So people used to get a letter of no objection, or usually you'd sit under a bank. So around 4 or 5 years ago, we decided, okay, fine, try and find out what it takes to be regulated. And it was a long process whereby now you start understanding, why do I need to have a risk department? Why is there a compliance department? Why am I doing a business continuity audit? Why am I doing an AML audit? What is AML? So it has been a ridiculously fulfilling learning experience. And we're still learning.
And also painful, I imagine.
Yes, because it's you're learning how the world works. So sorry, how the regulator or how governments want money to be handled. We announce because these are usually very, very thorough processes, very demanding, very rigorous. So when you finish, you also want to go out to the public and say, look, I'm regulated, or here is a place you can call in case there's a problem. Yes. So we've done a good job. We are still working on regulation in other markets that we think we want to go into. It's a learning process.
And I think with regulation comes this, I think for partners, even for service providers like us, that sense of, I think, peace of mind. I know, for instance, for you guys to interconnect even with people like Visa and so forth, again, the processes are rigorous, right?
But that is usually PCI DSS, PCI PIN, and then now you start connecting. For customers, yes, it's peace of mind. And even for us, the sales process becomes better because people stop asking who owns this company. Or people stop asking, na hii jina Agosta Liko inatoka wapi?
It's
the people want to know, huyu ni Mkikuyu, ni Mluya, ni Mkamba. You know how our markets work.
Yeah.
So it gives a little bit of comfort because we used to be asked, who owns this company?
Because the nature of the fact that you're doing payments, right?
Yes.
And people wondering, is it safe? Could there be risk?
So it helps. It is demanding, but we've benefited a lot from all the regulators in East Africa. When you don't understand something and you ask, they are very kind and they will explain. And we understand what they're doing. And also, we had to create a legal department and hire lawyers. If you had told me that we would ever have a lawyer on staff, I'd have told you, what are you smoking?
I'm so grateful for having this conversation because I'm now seeing other dimensions of what is PesaPal. But another thing I think for me, that I love about the way you operate Liko and how the business has been running, you sort of stayed the path, you've gone full on, you're doing things in a regulated way, is, right now it's very easy to get sort of, I think the word is starstruck with the fintech space in Africa. And the reason I'm saying this is because we're seeing ridiculous amounts of money flowing into the fintech space. I think even a few years ago, I had a conversation with you and you didn't sound in any way flustered or concerned about who's raising what and what that means for your business. It sounds to me like you've always been kind of very grounded and very almost focused, like get the job done, grow organically, move forward. I don't get that feeling you're the kind of guy who is looking for the next big donor or investor to take your business to the next level. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey? Because some would say you've taken the harder path. How do you operate in that manner? How does that work?
When we discuss, and I work with very smart, very patient people. One of my colleagues, Onesimus, always says, solve a problem for many people well, and everything will work out. So I don't believe money will solve a problem for many people well, unless you're giving loans at scale. And that is also a business that takes time. Then number two, we have time. Because we do not, we still control our vision, and we will always control our vision and where we're going. I don't believe there is money that we would be given or an investment that we would be given that would tell us, we've looked at Africa or we've looked at East Africa and we've hired people from East Africa who are saying this is where the problem is. I don't believe there's no amount of money that will convince us to ignore that problem and then start looking at something else. About money, we've seen money for a long time. There are people who've used money very well. But when you look at money alone, it does not seem to be what makes people successful.
It is not the means to the end itself, so to speak.
It's not a means to the end. I'm not saying I hate money. I'm not saying I'm now a socialist. I'd like to buy a G-Wagon like everyone. But then there's no correlation between how much money did you raise and success.
Absolutely. And I think that hype is, people are losing their way, so to speak, isn't it? To some extent.
I was told, never believe your PR. You know the truth. Like I can go to a nightclub or I can go to a bar or a restaurant. And when the waiter comes, I start, whatever in dollars. But maybe I only have $2,000 and I have $5 million in debt. So never believe your PR. There is a truth. You know the truth. Like when we sit, we have the numbers. We know where the problems are. We have the insults from the customer who is mad. That's the truth. So if we can focus on that, and what we try to do is say, focus on that. Get that customer who is not happy to become happy. Get that customer who is not a believer to become a believer. And sometimes say, look, I'm really, really, really sorry. I'm not the right service provider for you.
Even saying no, basically.
Yes, and then saying, look, this is the right person. Sometimes you push people in the right direction. Because you might not work with them on POS or e-commerce, blah, 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 but maybe they use TicketSasa. Maybe they use ReservePort. There's quite a few products that we have. And again, we have time.
And that's actually part of the really impressive side to even the service portfolio you have. Because I know like we have a client in Zanzibar and they're using the TravelPort solution to enable their e-commerce and went through a very painful process trying to do something custom. And then at the end of the day, it became the solution because I think you had analyzed the industry, you looked at the hospitality requirements, you saw a pain point, you created an offering which preempted what we were trying to build. And I think that's what you're saying here, isn't it? That look at a sector, look at a space, understand the commonalities of issues, and then build a solution that fits almost plug and play to close that gap.
So when we look at the hotel segment, ReservePort right now is used by, I guess, all the major hotels, mostly locally controlled hotels, because hotels wanted to sell online. And the business online is not big enough to warrant, $20,000 a year spend or $30,000 a year spend. So we built an online, a system that can be used by a hotel to make bookings online, to distribute their inventory on booking.com, hotels.com, blah, blah, blah. And if you have some property management systems, it will integrate. The same platform is what is being used by restaurants to integrate into their food ordering platforms and all that stuff. The same platform, we've now added connectivity so that if the restaurant, for example, has Uber Eats and right now it's, I think, Uber Eats and Glovo, when an order is made on Uber Eats and Glovo, that software acts as middleware to land it into the hotel. So the restaurant doesn't need to have tablets and all that stuff. So this is a product that is evolving with the market. Okay, in Kenya, the product is very popular because hotels want to have a resident rate and a non-resident rate. So when you bought a lot of the international software, they tell you buy 2 licenses. One, we've put prices in dollars, and the other one, we've put prices in shillings. Ours basically has, you click a drop down, or based on where you're loading the site, it will show you the right pricing. So that's our thinking. The segment or the hotel segment is big enough for you to build something as a value add, because you're like, okay, fine. This hotel is going to be here 10, 20, 30 years from now. So if you can help them with a pain point and grow with them, it'll generally pay back.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I think for me, one of the last things I'd like to ask about is, if we start looking at the crystal ball, 2 to 5 years from where you are today, where do you see PesaPal going? What sort of scenarios? Because again, there's this sort of fairly vast product portfolio, of which many people might not know how many things you've built and what you offer. But the next 2 to 5 years, where do you think you see PesaPal going?
So our strategy generally, we have universal products. The e-commerce and the POS business are universal products. Generally, most businesses can sign up for e-commerce, they can get a POS terminal. And then there is a sector-specific product. We have a good offering for events and concerts, events, holiday packages on TicketSasa. We have a good offering for hotels, restaurants, and all that stuff on ReservePort. And then now we're defining or building other products to pick particular segments that we'll be announcing as we go. So we are approaching the world market by market, segment by segment. There are places where we will not compete and you'll not find us. And we're okay until we have a product that will be good enough to make us the number one provider. That is how we build. We believe we can help businesses. And by helping the businesses, you basically are offering way more value than any other provider. And if you offer value, more value than the other providers, then you're basically building the barrier of entry for other people, but then also making some money.
Awesome.
Yes.
Liko, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I'm delighted we got to do this finally, 2 years in the waiting. And wishing you all the best going forward. I hope we'll have you again in the future on the Pure Digital podcast, with Moses Kemibaro. And more importantly, we are wishing you all the best at PesaPal.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.